Good evening, members. Welcome to the Scrutiny Committee for Leader, Deputy Leader and Housing and Customer Service being held in the Council Chamber on Wednesday the 8th of March 2023 at 7 p.m. My normal Vice Chairman, Councillor Pawford's has just given his apologies tonight, so I'd like to propose the Phantom of the Councillor Councillor Trumbull as Vice Chairman. Is that agreed? Thank you very much.
Don't mess with me.
Thank you. Item 1, to note substitutes in accordance with the Council Procedure Rule 4. I have Councillor Clark is substituting for Councillor Pawford. Councillor DeBell is substituting for Councillor Andrew Lee. Councillor Ellis is substituting for Councillor Coote, and Councillor Edwards, thank you, is substituting for Councillor Eaves. Good evening. Item 2, to receive apologies for absence, but obviously we've got Councillor Pawford, Councillor Andrew Lee, Councillor Coote, Councillor Eaves and Councillor Henwood. Item 3, to declare any interest from members in respect of anything matter on the agenda. I see none. I see no notifications. Thank you. Item 4, to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on 11th of January 2023. You can use your voting buttons here, please. Okay, they are agreed. We have 64, well, 9 in favour and 1 abstention. Thank you very much. Item 5, to consider any items the Chairman agrees to take as urgent business. I have none. Okay, item 6, overview of complaints 2021-2022. Mr. Hughes, you're going to lead us in on this. Simon, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This report provides members with information on formal complaints from April 2021 to March 2022. It includes details of complaints referred to the Ombudsman, but also details about the compliments we've received. And I think it's important to say that we review both complaints and compliments. We can certainly learn from both of those. And learning from what we're doing well is obviously important because we can transfer that across services. The report shows 100% compliance with the recommendations of the Ombudsman and a very low level of Ombudsman referrals. And critically, when someone refers a complaint to the Ombudsman, we continue to work to resolve that complaint. And you'll see that we've resolved over 30% of those that are upheld actually before any recommendation for the Ombudsman. So our focus is on how can we continue to resolve the issues that people have with us. That's it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Over to members, pages 9 to 18. If you could refer to the particular page, if it's specific to a page, let me know the number, please. Thank you very much. Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm pleased in the overall level of complaints is low, and I see we've been proactive in dealing with them. Just wonder, in terms of particularly the one about clinical waste, and given the change that took place in the service, whether there's been any other comments or feedback about that service, because I know some residents had that withdrawn because of changes.
What page is that, clinical waste?
On page 13.
Thank you.
One of the complaints.
Thank you. No, we haven't, but we continue to monitor satisfaction with that service. So we've had no further complaints about that.
Could I just come back in terms of how we would measure satisfaction in terms of is there a subset of the wider satisfaction survey, or in terms of that particular service?
Yes, certainly. We seek feedback from residents that are procuring the service. So effectively, we ask residents how are they receiving what they expect, but also we receive feedback about all our waste services as well. So that forms part of it. in addition, any queries that people raise with customer services we record.
Okay, I see no further indications. So the recommendation is the committee is to recommend to receive the report. Please vote if you agree with that. Thank you. Unanimous. That's unanimous. That report is agreed. Item 7 on page 19 to 38, performance monitoring for the third quarter. Louise Duffield's going to introduce this, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So I think this report sets out that despite a challenging external climate, we're really delivering well as a council, and I think sometimes it can be easy to be drawn to areas that look like they require attention, but it's an opportunity to take a pause at the great work that's going on. I think in particular there's some really strong statistics there on litter, street cleansing and food waste, as well as the work that we're doing on housing options and temporary accommodation. And I think, you know, when we start to look at areas where there are performance issues to address, those are often driven by external factors, so whether it's weather for refuse or whether it's additional grant processing in our Revs and Bends teams, we're accommodating those additional pressures really well. And I'd like to draw attention to the work of Simon Jones's team being in the last 2 weekends doing council tax billing, where we've also taken the opportunity to inform residents of things like voter ID, because it's a great opportunity to hit every doorstep. So I'd also, just on my own service, like to note that on land charges, we've yet again been assessed for having had no errors at all, and we've been shortlisted for an award as one of the best migrated authorities. So for officers, for all those officers out there, I think this is a great report in terms of their performance, but happy to take questions, and we'll be asking colleagues for areas that are not in my directorate.
Thank you, Louise. As per usual, we'll take it section by section so we don't jump around the whole report. So the first one is building control on page 23. I see no indications. Page 24, community services. Nope. Environmental health. Land charges. Legal and member services. Finance on page 26. Landscapes. We are doing well. Property and asset maintenance. Councillor Whittaker.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to say that I visited the Orchard Shopping Centre a couple of Saturdays ago, a rare Saturday off for me, and what a fantastic centre it is. Hadn't been there for a few years. Had to pop into Hayes Travel, which is always good to do. Love the smells coming from the Thai sort of kitchen on the outside, and the whole place had a great buzz and feel about it. Very well supported, so great to see footfalls up, and I'm sure that's going to continue. So well done to everybody involved.
Thank you, Councillor Whittaker. Waste and outdoor services. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, I know that I missed collections of waste, but bearing in mind the snowy conditions and things, that's understandable. But I do think I'd like to convey our thanks to the contractors and the workmen working in such difficult conditions and managing to get a reasonable amount of waste collected, even so they're behind the targets.
Thank you. No, Councillor Stockwell.
Thank you, Chairman. Just looking at the assessment on here on the gradings for both litter and detritus, that's the leaf fall. That's the leaf fall I was interested in. I can understand removing leaf fall from footpaths and playing areas within our parks and so forth, but I hope that we're not removing it from all the flower beds and so forth, because obviously that is part of helping them with leaf mould and regeneration of the soil. Can anybody just confirm that's the case, please?
Who would like to take it? Tom?
Thank you. No, we don't remove it from those areas. It's principally from, as it says there, so detritus, particularly around any areas where it may hinder water moving on and not flooding areas. Those are the sorts of areas that we do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving along, economic development, page 29. Nope, okay. Customer services and communications on page 30. Councillor Hicks.
In terms of, I note in terms of relating to the percentage of inquiries resolved at point of contact, and there's a reference to quarter three being, figures being unavailable. Does that apply to quarter two? Is there an ongoing issue here in terms of why we don't have the performance information?
Simon Jones. Yeah, I'm sorry, happy to take that. Sorry, I was just checking with Simon because I couldn't quite hear your question, but I've taken it that you want to know about the why we don't have the data for quarter two. Are you saying now instead of not quarter three?
Is there an ongoing problem if we can?
Yeah, it's just we're looking at the best way to record that data because whilst obviously we're very interested in making sure that our customers' inquiries are resolved as swiftly as possible, trapping that data in a meaningful way is not something we've been able to do since we migrated to our new telephony system because it records data in a slightly different way. So what we're trying to focus on is getting that qualitative data about the customer process, and I think we'll be able to, as time moves forward, present members with a range, if you like, a dashboard of data that you'll be able to take a much more qualitative overview of. So we think that'll be much more helpful than just knowing that very sort of bare bones stat that doesn't really tell you much about the actual journey that the customer's been on.
Thank you. Just if I may, just,
Please.
would that include e-forms as well? That's a big gap that we don't receive from people.
Yeah, so it's our intention to capture a whole suite of qualitative data around the customer process, and that would include all channels, so telephony, forms, and any other channels that we monitor as well. Yeah.
Okay. Page 32, housing. Any more questions? No, I see no indications. Human resources on page 33. Councillor Stockwell.
Just a couple of things really. On the staff turnover, which it has sort of crept up rather on there. I'm assuming that a lot of this is down to the reorganisation that's been going on within the council, because we did have that down to quite a low level at one point. So that was one question. And my other one is really around the data for the minorities and the disabled members of staff. And I'm hoping that come next year we'll see that for the number of armed forces, those people who have had the experience of working within the armed forces sector, including spouses of those involved. So perhaps you could confirm that for me too, please.
Do you want to take the point there, Louise, on staff turnover and the armed forces? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, so on the staff turnover point, staff turnover includes new joiners, and bear in mind this is quarter three, so it's got quite a bit of a lag on it. So you'll see a couple of faces along here that represent that. So I'd say it's a positive and it's a planned, whether it's retirements or restructure. So from my point of view, that isn't indicative of a worrying trend. It's a good thing that we're attracting people to the authority. In relation to the armed forces, I think we'll come onto this in the equalities report, but one of the key things is encouraging people to give us that information so that we can report on it. And we've started to do a piece of work with Unison where we can collaboratively encourage people to input that data and share, because if we don't know, we can't report it and then we can't do better with it. So we absolutely are moving in that direction.
Can I just ask one further question?
Please.
Is there a possibility of doing something like a staff survey?
There absolutely is. I think at the moment we have the functionality in our system, and there are lots of things that people declare quite readily, and perhaps they just don't know there are certain boxes in there. So I think we'll start with awareness raising, because really we want to capture it all within our human resources database. But we had really positive conversation with Unison about that being a joint approach about why we want to capture that data.
Thank you. Councillor Trumbull.
Thank you, Chairman. We whizzed over housing and I rather missed that. I don't know if you'll permit me to ask a question.
Seeing as it's you, yes.
Very noble of you. The indicators on homelessness and temporary accommodation are going in the right direction. But what I do notice is the time spent in temporary accommodation seems to have increased in Q3. I was just wondering why that is. And then if I may just have a further question, Chairman. We're on human resources, so if I may look at that. I've always been of the view that it's not our concern here in the committee, the human resources figures. It's a management issue, unless it impacts performance. But what I am concerned about, and I know you will tell me that I've raised this issue before, but as this is the last of these scrutiny committees I will attend, I will not be raising this issue in future because I won't be here. And I think it's very important that this issue is raised and considered. There has been a number of issues raised in newspapers recently about accommodation rates in council offices. The Telegraph, the Times, the Mail, for instance, have picked this up. The Telegraph had, in actual fact, did a freedom of information request from a number of councils. It found that 81% of council staff were working from home. In fact, the Times believes it's more like 90% working from home. And a lot of questions are being asked about this. I'm not going to ask the question now because I know what the answer would be. We've asked that before. But I would urge this council going forward to seriously look at this issue and consider what our position will be. Because if we don't consider what our position will be and what we want to do about it, others will be asking that question. So, Chairman, if I may leave you with that, thank you. But it'd be interesting to know the issue on temporary accommodation. Thank you.
Absolutely, your comments are noted about, because you have asked before several times about... but if you want to take the question on Simon Jones, thank you.
Yep, I'm happy, Chair, to take the question on temporary accommodation. I think it's a number of factors, but I think chiefly among those is the supply of affordable accommodation continues to be a challenge, and the nature and the makeup of the cases that we're dealing with becomes more complex and is becoming more complex, so that can add extra time to that cycle. But we are working very hard to target the cases that are most at need and that are the most complex, so that we can get people through as quickly as we can. But it's those external factors really that are putting pressure on the time that people are spending in temporary accommodation, I would say.
Thank you. Councillor Higgs.
Thank you, Chairman. It was about the HR in terms of the staff sickness rate. I noticed the target has changed from 7 to 5.25% if the figures are right. Just wondered the reason for that. And certainly the increase in staff sickness, even if it's perhaps it's just a couple of individuals, but it is quite a significant leap. I'm not too worried about the staff turnover figure, given the sort of comparatives I'm aware of, but perhaps sickness is beginning to creep up compared with the sort of figures we had during COVID.
Obviously, we can't discuss individual cases, but has it been COVID or something like that? Or has it been...
I'll take that. Well, Louise is
So just on the sickness, it is a few cases which are being actively managed. We're not at all worried about the trend at all.
Thank you.
So the change in the target, is that correct?
On the
From 7 to 5.25%.
yeah, I'd have to come back to you on that.
I think,
God, I can't believe we're doing targets to 2 decimal places.
I think it's the annual target to quarterly, but I'll come back to you on it.
Yeah. It's probably
Thank you.
is that, yeah.
ICT and digital, 33. Revenues and benefits on page 34. Councillor Alison Bennett, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Noting that there are a number of indicators that are red on page 34 for revenues and benefits, and the comment about there's obviously been an extra workload on the team with the administration of the energy rebate scheme. I was interested in whether, when the government has sort of given the council money for the energy rebate, it is just the money that goes out to residents who are entitled to it, or whether you are also compensated for the extra burden of doing that administration, and then I'm also aware that there's a labour shortage in all sorts of sectors, and I know that impacts the council too. Is there a recruitment problem, and are there vacancies at the moment in that team?
Mr Hughes, with Simon.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the government does give us new burdens funding, but that comes not necessarily at the same time as the actual grants. Also, it takes time to both recruit and train officers. So that's another key factor in terms of our ability to upskill and then create the capacity to do those. What I would also say, though, is if you look at the performance indicators further down, so the local authority overpayment error and the accuracy, any processing is a balance. You need to manage the accuracy and the overpayment error down, and that's a function of both speed and process. So those figures at the top in terms of speed and those figures at the bottom do relate. And you have to balance those carefully, especially when you've got additional burdens like doing grants and doing fuel energy rebates and so on. So the task is to get all of those out on time, critical for people, but also to get them at the correct level. So what you'll start to see in this performance indicator in terms of time, with that improving over time. We've just done annual billing. Teams have been in over the weekend. The grants is largely done, but there may be more to come. That's something we will always have to pray for. And so you'll see that speed of processing start to drop.
Okay, thank you. Leisure operations on page 35. It's a good story to tell there. Parking services and electrical charge. Sorry, I missed. I jumped a bit too quickly there for you. Is it to do with the leisure? Yeah, Councillor Alison Bennett. Yeah, please. Sorry.
Thank you. I'm trying to get on the right page, what my leisure question was as well. Leisure centres. So we've got a falling attendance between Q2 and Q3. My question was, is that something that happens every year? Is Q3 always quieter than Q2? And so is that what we'd expect to see?
Yes.
Thank you.
I like simple questions like that. Councillor Phillips, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just an observation that as we're moving towards a cashless society, should the target for the pay and display transactions be revised upwards?
We're on to electrical charging and parking services.
Yes, sorry, yes.
That's fine. He's talking about display transactions because we're going cashless.
Yes, thank you. Yes, we'll always keep an eye on those things when we're reviewing the targets every year as to reflect how people are using the services. Thank you.
No more indications on that section. Development management on page 37. No indications. And the last one, housing enabling. Oh, Councillor Whittaker.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, very pleased to see the cumulative number of affordable homes is 288. So I'm assuming and hoping that at the end of the QE4 it'll be well into the 300s. And I just wondered if there was a target on that. It says data only, but I would imagine it'd be around 350-ish. But good that we're on track.
Thank you, Councillor Whittaker. Is it Sally Bloomfield, would you like to? Sally, would you like to? About the target, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's data only because it depends on the number of applications and the delivery rate. So I think that's the right way to set it. 288 is a phenomenally good figure, really good figure. And we as an authority are really good at securing affordable housing. And yes, it will by the end of the year be over 300. So it's a good news story.
Thank you very much. I see no further indications. So the recommendations are on page 19. The committee is recommended to note the council's performance in the third quarter of the year and identify any areas where further reporting or information is required. And I don't think there was any particular issues that coming forward cabinet there. So if you'd like to vote on those recommendations, thank you. Okay, that is passed unanimously. Item 8 on pages 39 and 58, Equality and Diversity Progress Report 2022, going to be introduced by Louise again. Louise Nuffield, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So I don't propose to go through the report in detail because I think it speaks for itself. I think there are a few things that I would like to add in addition. So you'll see that we note in the report the successful work done around the Queen's Jubilee grants, and that we have this last week announced a similar programme for King's Coronation grants, which we're actively promoting at the moment. I'd also note the combined officer and member armed forces training, which has been incredibly successful. Over 130 people joined in mixed groups, and that's led to us looking to secure the silver status, which we're confident we'll do. And also the support to Ukrainian people across a number of areas, whether it's through housing, whether it's through grants, or whether it's through our work through partnerships with the local voluntary sector. I think we can be incredibly proud of the work that we've done across this year on that. So I'll take any questions on the report.
Okay, I'll take the report en bloc, but if you could just refer to a particular page if you've got a question, that would help us. Thank you. Councillor Simon Hicks.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the report is a good report, but I'd just highlight two issues that I think we need to address around, firstly around hate crime. As you've highlighted, the increase in that is 42% on the previous year for Mid Sussex, compared with 9% for the county as a whole. So I don't know whether we've got any further data around why Mid Sussex is increased so much, albeit on a small sample. I'd also highlight the extraordinary number of unknowns in terms of school leavers. We can't identify whether they're NEETs or some other have engaged with some other activity, but it's gone up from 71 to 336. So I just wonder if there's any reasons for that we know of. Thank you.
Lucy, would you like to answer? Can you take both on those, please?
Thank you. In terms of the hate crime, we have seen an increase in reporting. There's been a big drive to report more. So I think that is good in one way, if you understand what I'm saying. And we are working very closely with the police to take on board those reports and act upon them. And the second part?
Regarding the NEETs in terms of the survey of NEETs, but the unknowns in terms of we don't know whether they are NEETs or gone on to some other activity. On point 24 on page 49,
I'm afraid I don't know, but I can certainly come back to you, councillor Hicks.
It's increased from 71 to 336.
I'll absolutely come back to you.
Yeah. Could I just say, on the hate crime, is that initiative you refer to, is that just a Mid-Sussex initiative, or is it a wider one?
No, it's wider, but for some reason we have seen a larger increase than other districts, but it certainly is a wider initiative to keep reporting.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Linda Stockwell, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think this is a lovely report. I think it's really well written, and I think there's such a lot of good stuff in here. And I'm absolutely delighted, as you will know, to see the fact that the armed forces have been well and truly represented within this report. One little observation I have on that is on page 45 under Objective 4, training and support, including assistance for former members of the armed forces. Could you add, and their families, please? Because if it's spouses who are struggling to find work or anything like that, that would be really helpful to have in there. And my other thing in here has got nothing to do with armed forces, you'll be pleased to hear. On page 53, under the residential location, we've got the community grant to the family support work to fund a set up an informal drop-in for isolated parents and carers of children. This is at the Bentswood hub. That's great. But a lot of isolated people live out in villages. And that's not something that they could easily have access to. My thought was, would it be something to consider, possibly not immediately, but something to bear in mind, of having something like a mobile unit that goes to various villages on a rota basis, so that those people within the villages who are isolated will have some representation and some support and some service that would help them, rather than having it all centred within the town. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for that. Thanks for that idea. I mean, your first comment we'll take on board. With regard to the villages, the other thing is just to draw. I mean, it's an interesting idea. We'll have a chew on it. The other option, of course, we've got in terms of grants is parish councils quite often lead some of that work for more rural communities, and they can apply for grants. So that's worth us also thinking about, because those facilities around village hall or parish halls are very accessible to those communities.
Can I just say something? That is something that we need to advertise to those parishes, to all those parishes. To make sure that they're aware of what is available to them, should they wish to address this situation. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Alison Bennett.
Thank you. I'll just sort of back up the point that Councillor Stockwell has made on the residential location and the need for rural communities to sort of feature in the support we provide. This is more of a relating to the young person's aspect of it, but I think it's probably applicable to all age groups. But I regularly attend meetings, stakeholder meetings with the parish, Sussex Clubs for Young People, representatives from MSDC, and the sort of lack of funding for youth services in rural areas is a real problem. And Sussex Clubs for Young People spend a lot of their time filling in grant application forms. That seems to be a sort of full-time occupation for them, really. And it doesn't seem to be that conducive to sort of sustaining long-term, secure youth service provision. So that's a point specifically for the young, but I think more broadly for rural communities, it's a problem that applies across the piece. In addition to that, I wanted to look at page 52. Firstly, the section on domestic abuse. Do we have the split of abuse that's perpetrated on men and abuse perpetrated on women? I know men are victims of domestic abuse, but it is mostly women. I think it should be women and men suffering domestic abuse. There is no consideration in that section on the intersectionality of domestic abuse victims on different characteristics, like whether they're from ethnic minorities. I think that is something that should be looked at. And I'm also interested in how rates of domestic abuse have increased since COVID. I believe that they have increased, and I think it's a problem that's getting worse. And today, there was a conference hosted between East Sussex County Council and West Sussex County Council all about domestic abuse. Was anybody from Mid Sussex able to attend? So that's my domestic abuse questions. I do have some on gender reassignment. Shall I pause there and come back?
Thank you, that's very
Thank
kind.
you.
Lucy, do you want to take the domestic abuse, please?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. The domestic abuse event for International Women's Day today was attended by one of my community safety team. I'm afraid I haven't had the opportunity to have any feedback yet, but absolutely we had representation there.
Great, thank you.
What about the split between, the different ethnic groups in terms of figures for that, in terms of abuse? I think it was a question.
Louise can help with that.
Thank you.
I think where we are at the moment is, I'll answer your question in the round because there's a few points there. This strategy takes us to the end of this year, so we've got an opportunity to address some of the points that Lynn and yourself have raised in terms of the data we're capturing in future. A lot of the data here relies on our partners, a lot of them at county, and how they characterise and split it out. So I can't honestly answer you whether we can get that granularity, but we can certainly be inquisitive about whether we can do it in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. On sort of paragraphs 43 onwards, on gender reassignment, paragraph 43, the sort of three percentages of 0.07%, 0.06 and 0.05 don't add up to 0.32. So if somebody could check that, that would be good. And then paragraph 44, again, it's about granularity. You know, what level of incidence of hate crime against trans people are there, please? I will leave my comments on that section there. I finally just want to say on the young person section, which is page 49, paragraph 23 onwards, I mean, I think looking at NEETs, and I don't really like using that acronym, it makes them sound like not like real people, but anyway, we'll use it for want of a better description. But looking at NEETs is absolutely an area of focus, and that's really important. But more broadly, I witness as a parent and amongst sort of fellow friends, children, there's a huge epidemic of mental health problems in our children at the moment. And I think we have a responsibility to really sort of prioritise that, as well as looking at young people who aren't in education, employment and training. Eating disorders, anxiety, school refusal. It doesn't seem to be an unusual thing. I know a lot of families who are in crisis with this at the moment. And I'd really urge all of us to think about what more this council can do to support our colleagues at the county and in the NHS on that.
Thank you. On your very first granular point on 44, I haven't got that at our fingertips. We can have a look, but and I would also say to members, if you do have these detailed questions in advance, if you drop us an email, there's a good chance we'll be able to come to the meeting with the answer. So if you want to avail yourselves of that in going forward, do. To your point about mental health issues, yes, that's right, and that's being spotted by all sorts of agencies for all sorts of groups, actually. Even within the broad, it is a broad, isn't it, group of what constitutes a young person. We're seeing a number of agencies reporting in considerable spikes. And I think, you know, as a small district council, we will, of course, try to respond alongside our partners, but it does need to be a partnership approach. And I fear that as we put, hopefully, a little bit of distance between us and the pandemic, we're starting to see patterns emerging. And as we get better data and evidence, I hope we'll be able to tailor our responses, our cross-partnership approaches. It is a worrying trend, I agree with you. I've got a contact who's very senior in mind, and that their data nationally is quite stark in terms of what they're seeing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to go back to the table reported of hate crimes. There was a good answer, I thought, that from our officers about the fact that more are being reported, maybe being reported, and that's a lot of work done by this council, and the Police and Crime Commissioner is very strict on these and does a lot of work on that. I'm not normally on this committee, so I don't want to make extra work for anybody, but I just wondered whether we could have, are there any other figures that we could compare it to other areas as well, because that might be useful, but I don't want to cause extra work. If the information's there, it might be worth us comparing to other areas. Thank you.
Perhaps a percentage against the national average or something like that, Councillor Clark, would that be?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll gladly find that for you and circulate it.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Sandy Ellis.
Thank you, Chairman. Could I just ask, on page 49, obviously it's talking about older people, and obviously people can face social isolation. I just wanted to thank everyone for the Jubilee grants, because I attended quite a few events and it was so well organised and people really enjoyed the day through the grants that was given from this council. But as originally, I did start off the Silver Sunday that was supported by Mid Sussex District Council. It was really successful in the 3 towns. Then we moved on to a grant system for people to enable to organise their own events, which was very successful. And I appreciate COVID put a sort of stop to most of these things because of gathering. But could I ask, going forward, if we could look again at Silver Sunday, because I think we should be celebrating that event, and it was very well appreciated, as all your grants are that you do to across the community. Thank you.
Yes, of course, they were tremendous events, weren't they? And yes, we will have a think about that in our new world. Yes, absolutely, we will. Thank you.
Councillor Whittaker.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, in similar vein, I'd like to thank the District Council, page 53, the supporting local communities, paragraph 48, tremendous in the 3 main locations, the community hubs, and particularly thanks to East Grinstead Quarry Cafe and Sarah Howland and her team that do fantastic work there. So it's hugely appreciated. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you everybody for your comments. Thank you and questions.
Sorry, Chairman, can I just add one more? I did, Councillor Ellis, I think, raises a very interesting point, and I would support that wholeheartedly. When I was chairman, I saw a number of older people who were behind closed doors, very often men, and their friend was a whiskey bottle. That is tragic. And we look at the figures in Appendix A and we see that the people of my age, there's 35% increase of 51% increase of people 70 and over, 35% increase in people 75 and over. These are telling figures, and the situation that those people face is shocking sometimes. So yes, I would support anything that this council can do to ameliorate that situation. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Jackson.
Thank you. In your initial preamble, you did say that you just announced a £20,000 pot of money for community organisations to do things for the coronation. When is the deadline for that, those things to be put forward?
You're catching me on the detail there. I'll circulate that round in a format that you can then share with your local communities.
Well, that's quite important that we have to let our parish councils know. And
31st of March.
Leader of the Council, Councillor Ash Edwards, please.
Chairman, I'm advised by the Deputy Leader that applications open tomorrow on the website, but we'll confirm the end date. There'll be an application window for people to apply.
Thank you. I see no more indications. Okay, so recommendations on page 39. The Scrutiny Committee is requested to note the Equality and Diversity Progress Report 2022 included at Appendix 1. Please vote now. Okay, that is unanimous. Item 9, questions pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 10. Due notice has been given as none. As my Vice Chair has rightly pointed out, this is the last scrutiny meeting for this particular group. I'd just like to thank you all for your participation over the last few years and the robust conversations we've had and discussions. But most of all, you're the ones we really want to thank, the diligent work and the hard work and Kathleen's team have put. So thank you very much.
And I think we should thank our chairman for expertly chairing these meetings. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. So therefore I close the meeting at 7:45. Just a minute while they shut down the live feed. Just remain still. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.